When I hit 23, I began hunting for a place of my own. I had some money saved, which was enough for either a good apartment or a tiny house in my locality. Though I came across many attractive apartment options, a house seemed more appealing for some reason. After several months of searching, I found a small 2-story house with a fenced backyard that fit my budget. The interior was a bit old-fashioned, but it didn't bother me much. On the day of the move, I grabbed my rented truck early in the morning, packed it with my belongings, which were mostly boxes and a few pieces of furniture, and drove to the house. Since I was moving from my parents' place, I didn't have a lot to carry with me. I had bought some essentials like kitchen utensils, but my furniture was limited to a bed. I reached my new house at 8 in the morning. The neighborhood was silent and peaceful. Excited, I started unloading the truck. It took me 2 hours to unload, but I kept the truck for the rest of the day just in case. I immediately began setting up my bedroom. After assembling my bed, I attempted to lug my bulky, awkward mattress up the stairs alone. Just as I was nearing the top, a loud slam from a door downstairs scared the life out of me. My heart raced as I quickly moved the mattress into the bedroom and rushed downstairs to investigate. I couldn't figure out which door it was, or if it was a person or a gust of wind. All I knew was I heard a door slam. After a futile search of 30 minutes, I found no evidence of anything unusual. So I made sure all the doors were locked and went back to setting up my room. By the end of the day, I had unpacked all the boxes and arranged my furniture. I felt accomplished and was looking forward to shopping for a couch the next day. Around 10 p.m., I climbed into bed and scrolled through my phone before drifting off to sleep. When I woke up, the room was pitch dark and I was facing the wall next to my bed. I was about to fall asleep again when I heard the wooden floorboards creak from across the room. Turning over, expecting to see nothing, I was met with a shocking sight. The bedroom door was open, and a figure stood in the doorway, appearing to be mid-step into the room, which seemed to have caused the creak. The stranger's eyes were the only visible thing in the darkness, showing no emotion, just a chilling stare. After the most terrifying moment of my life, the figure retreated into the hallway, took hold of the door handle, and slammed the door. The sound of their footsteps echoed as they ran down the hallway, descended the stairs, and exited the house. Fearing a heart attack, I gathered myself and dialed 911. In the following days, the police couldn't identify who it was, but I had a chat with the homeowner from whom I was renting. They revealed that the previous tenant had been evicted for non-payment of rent, and after months of no communication, their belongings were cleared out. The previous tenant was nowhere to be found, according to the homeowner, a fact confirmed by the police who found very few records of them. They had essentially vanished. Years have passed since that incident, and of course, I left that house immediately. But the mystery still lingers in my mind. The intruder could have been the previous tenant, or someone who might have been responsible for their disappearance. Either way, it was evident they didn't want me around. Before I move on to the next story, I want to mention an important sponsor of today's video, Aura, a high-tech online digital security service that allows you to search for and delete your personal data from various online sources, including scam sites, the dark web, and data brokers. These entities profit from your personal information, making it essential to remove your data from their grasp. Aura simplifies this process for us. After a quick sign-up for their free trial, Aura scanned and removed my data from the internet with just a few clicks. They alerted me about various places on the internet where my personal data, like my full name, phone number, and address, were found. Without Aura, I would have been oblivious. Aura also continually tracks my data, promptly informing me about any potential issues and offering quick solutions. Additionally, they provide a feature to encrypt your home's Wi-Fi, securing all your connected devices. In the modern world, personal identity and data theft are unfortunately common, impacting a significant number of U.S. citizens. Millions fall prey each year, leading to massive financial losses. But with Aura, you can be assured of your security and preventive measures. For a free 14-day trial, visit aura.com/whispered or scan the provided QR code. During this trial, you can find out if your personal data has been compromised, erase your data from various major platforms, and safely monitor your identity. I highly recommend taking advantage of this free trial to check if your data has been stolen and to keep your identity secure. A big thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video and helping us keep our personal data safe. When I was 20 years old last July, I moved into my own place for the first time. It was an apartment complex with 8 other flats in the building. This was the least expensive apartment that I could find for rent at that time. Even though I had a full-time job, I didn't earn much and I was in a hurry to move out of my mom and dad's place, even though I wasn't really prepared. The day I moved in, I arranged a fold-out sofa in the living room and put up my small TV, and that was about all. I didn't own much else other than the necessities, and I couldn't afford to buy any additional things. For a while, the sofa bed was where I slept, right in the open space. On that first morning, though, I was awakened at 6 a.m. by someone knocking on my door. I glanced at the door, not wanting to get up, but when they knocked again, I understood that they weren't planning on leaving. There was a middle-aged man, maybe in his 40s, waiting outside my flat. He just stared at the door, expecting me to answer, and didn't seem like he was going to leave. I opened the door and asked him what he wanted. "Just wanted to say hello. I live in the apartment next to yours," he said, pointing at the last door in the corridor. I smiled, said thanks, and then told him I was busy and needed to get back to my things. I closed the door and returned to my sofa bed. I didn't have to work for the next 3 days, and all I wanted to do was sleep late and enjoy my new flat by myself. I went back to sleep and didn't wake up until around noon. After taking a shower, I took my keys and went down to my car to get some groceries. As I was pulling out of my parking spot, I noticed someone observing me from a window. When I looked at them, they quickly looked away, which made me feel uneasy. I counted the windows up to the 3rd floor, which was the same floor as my apartment. And knowing that there were 2 apartments per floor, I realized it must have been the same guy who'd visited earlier that morning. It gave me an odd feeling, but I drove off to get groceries anyway. When I returned to my apartment, I had my meal while watching some TV, and spent the remaining part of the day just lounging on the sofa. I stayed up until about 11 when I started feeling sleepy. I switched off all the lights and settled down on the sofa bed, but then something grabbed my attention. There was a red light flashing from somewhere in the kitchen area. It wasn't overly bright or anything, but it was flickering on and off, which started to annoy me. I got up and wandered into the kitchen, thinking it was likely to be the dishwasher or microwave, but neither of them had any lights on. As I was scanning all the appliances, the light went off and didn't come back on. I was so exhausted that I didn't even give it another thought until the next morning. With all the lights turned on now, I did another quick check, and to my astonishment, I discovered something. There was this tiny device stuck between my fridge and the wall. I shifted the fridge and pulled it out. It was a camera, really small, but it was undeniably some kind of camera. I just stood there staring at it for a couple of minutes until I heard someone knocking on my door. I peeked, and it was that same middle-aged man from before. I opened the door with some caution. The man said he was just checking in on me, but he seemed and sounded anxious. He had an odd smile and just appeared a bit odd. He moved a step closer to the door, and I told him I was doing fine, but was occupied again today. He didn't say anything after that, but instead just stood there with a weird and awkward expression. I had this sense of expectancy, like he was about to do something. Suddenly he lunged towards the door, attempting to force his way in. Fortunately, I was stronger and managed to shove the door back at him, preventing him from coming in, and finally was able to shut the door completely and lock it. I dialed 911, and within a short time, like 10 minutes, the guy was in handcuffs. When I showed the police the camera I had found, he confessed that he had installed it without even resisting, but after a more detailed investigation, they found cameras in 3 other apartments as well. I think by confessing to the camera in my apartment, he figured they would trust him and not feel the need to search the other apartments. I realize it was just some weird guy who probably wouldn't have physically harmed me, but it still gave me the creepiest and most unsettling feeling I'd ever experienced. I shifted to Portland the previous autumn due to my job. I really didn't have a choice. Living in Portland was and is still pretty costly, so I had to find a place a bit far from the city center. I ended up picking a house that wasn't so great. It was old and needed a lot of work. At first sight, you might think it had been abandoned, but the good thing was that it was affordable and I could save a good amount of money. I thought I could spruce it up and improve it so it wouldn't be so gloomy. But one thing I couldn't change was the neighborhood. There were similar houses in the neighborhood, and some shady-looking folks lived there. I noticed guys in torn tank tops strolling around with guns clearly visible in their pants. I knew the neighborhood wasn't great when I first checked out the house, but I had no idea about these kind of people. I thought it would be normal, decent folks like me who simply couldn't afford a better place. After about 2 weeks of living there, I was walking my dog around the block when I noticed some guys following me. They were a bit far, but it was clear they were tracing my steps. A few glances over my shoulder revealed 3 men who didn't look like they were out for a leisurely evening stroll. To avoid any potential trouble, I took a shortcut home. However, just a few minutes later, my dog started growling at the front door. Peeking through the blinds, I saw one of the men standing at my door. I couldn't see the others anywhere. Putting the chain latch on, I cracked the door open. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Chris," he replied confidently, as if I should definitely know this Chris person. "I don't know any Chris. I just moved here." As we talked, I saw him trying to peek inside my house through the gap in the door. Then he said, "See you later," and left. I had a feeling something wasn't right, but I wasn't sure what it was. In the following days, I saw the same 3 men eyeing my house multiple times. They would always come separately at different times, either standing across the street or walking past my house while openly looking at it. I was quite anxious, but I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't think calling the cops would help much, even if I decided to make the call. Then one evening around 9 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Peering out, I saw a man I hadn't seen before. He knocked again, but I decided to ignore him, hoping he'd eventually leave. I watched as he turned around, throwing his hands up in annoyance, seemingly indicating to someone across the street that I wasn't responding. He turned back and pounded on the door again, this time using the butt of his gun. I dashed to the kitchen and pulled out my handgun from its hidden spot. I heard a few men's voices near the side of my house, followed by banging sounds at my back door. I ran to a secluded corner in my living room and dialed the police while the men outside began to argue. Their conversations about where to break into my house was one of the scariest things I've ever had to listen to. Then, unexpectedly, a gunshot rang out from somewhere far away, not from any of the men surrounding my house. I heard them all yell out and then scatter. The cops took forever to arrive, and when they did, they basically told me it sounded like a gang marking their territory or something. They didn't offer any useful help. I still have no idea who fired that shot at the gang, but it seems like they were trying to protect me, which I'm grateful for. I can't even imagine what could have happened if they had managed to break in. As soon as I had the chance, I moved out of that neighborhood and into a smaller apartment closer to the city. It feels more secure, but after everything I went through, I'm not sure if I'll ever feel completely safe living here.